Hello everybody, Flaming Shark. Boy, does it feel weird and good to say that we are back with some more Danganronpa. Now, today we jump into something very different from our usual Danganronpa. We've obviously played the first two games in the series, the first two main games, and we're not going to be playing a mainline game in this entire stretch of going through Danganronpa content. This is post the first Route of Fate, the Fate Route of Fate Stay Night, and we're going to do all this stuff before the second Route of Fate, and then before we do the final Route of Fate, we'll be playing Danganronpa V3, but I plan to read Danganronpa 0, I plan to read the If story at the end that was unlocked in Danganronpa 2, I plan to play Ultra Despair Girls, I plan to watch the Danganronpa 3 anime. So there's a lot to do in the world of Danganronpa, all different experiences. We have an anime to watch and react to. We have a game to play that's not a mainline game, but is still a Danganronpa game. We have a like light novel story that exists within one of the games we've already played to read, and then we have one that I'll be reading off a PDF file. So there's a lot here. And we are, of course, starting with Danganronpa 0. I don't know how long this is going to be. From my understanding, I believe this is 2 volumes, a couple hundred pages. I don't know how long this will take. I'm recording this on May 16th at 5:25 a.m., so you guys will see this in a couple days. The plan is to post this on Friday, and the hope would be I would like to get through this in no more than 4 videos. It would be great if I could just do Volume 1 today and Volume 2 next time. I don't know how realistic that is, but we'll see what happens when we get around to it. And I'll also say that voices are going to be problematic, I'm sure. One, because my voice has been I've been having issues with my throat a little bit lately, and I'm just kind of getting over it. And I recorded some regular reactions, and they went really good, actually, especially the fact that, like, the second reaction, I think it was less noticeable than the first, which is really surprising, so it worked out quite well. But now we're doing a thing that's involving me talking for hours on end, and I'm not sure how that's going to go. So this is the big test, because I haven't done this in a while, because I finished the Fate stuff a little while ago, and, yeah, this is literally me reading a story, so this could not involve me saying more words, really, than it will, obviously. So I got my water, and I'm really excited for this. I don't know how this is going to look on the screen. I am going to be screen capping. I'm screen capping my entire screen, but I'm basically going to edit out the whole screen outside of the part that's the actual story. And that's, I don't know. I don't know what I'll put in the rest of the screen. Maybe I'll do some sort of background that's Danganronpa related. I have no fucking clue what this video is going to look like, but I guarantee you that you will hear my voice. Maybe I'll put some, like, very light, very faint background music behind me, possibly, and we're going to read. I haven't really, the closest thing to this that I've done, I mean, this probably takes me back to literally one of the first videos I ever made. It was actually a set of 4, but it was my reactions to the first arc of the MLP comics. Yes, I am dead serious. They were actually really good, and I always wanted to keep reading them, and I never did. But nonetheless, this is kind of a, similarly to how Danganronpa was a bit of unexplored territory for me in the sense of actually doing a visual novel Let's Play. Now we're kind of jumping into something that's also a bit of foreign territory here in just straight up reading a light novel here. So I have it. This is the revamped version 1.5.0. So the translation should be decent, because I know that there's a lot of shitty translations for this. But from my understanding, I believe this will be a decent translation. If there's a more recent one that's better, I'm unaware. This is the most recent one that I'm familiar with, so this is the one that we're going with. So, yeah, here we go. I just opened it up, and no, I actually want to open it up through my, Caliber ebook viewer. Yep. Okay. And we are good to go. All right, so it is up. You guys will probably see a white screen. And as I scroll down, yep, there's a cover of two characters I have never seen before. A red-haired girl and a black-haired dude, and it's also sideways, which is interesting. Danganronpa 0, written by Kazutaka Kodaka. I believe that is the creator of Danganronpa. Illustrated by Rui Komatsuzaki. Originally published by Seikaisha, and then re-edited by Archive of Our Own user Tetralize. This is version 1.5.0, and there's a table of contents. We don't need any of that. Okay, chapter 16 is the last chapter of volume 1, and there's 17 chapters, and this is an editor note. I don't, spoilers for the first one. You don't need, worry about playing the second one. Yeah, okay, so basically saying that you should read this after DR1, which that was on the table, and but we did end up going with reading this after DR2, so that is what it is. Okay, so I'm assuming, given the way it would be drawn, I'm assuming this is the cover of the first volume, and the second volume is the guy, like the other side of it, but it's just one piece of art that's split into two halves. That's actually kind of cool. So I'm assuming these are our two, like, main characters of this story. Interesting that neither of them are characters that we've met at this point. I actually think that's very interesting that they're characters that had no relation to Danganronpa 1 or Danganronpa 2, at least as far as I can tell at this point. There's always the possibility of some form of plot twist here. You can also notice the socks have the logo too, but yeah, the Hope's Peak, they do have the Hope's Peak logos and stuff, so they are definitely students of Hope's Peak Academy, which makes sense. I'm expecting Danganronpa 0 to basically cover some of, like, Junko's rise to power, potentially stuff involving the reserve course of Hope's Peak Academy. I could definitely see them covering... there's a lot of things they could cover, of course, but I would not be surprised if Junko is heavily featured in this story, as well as the reserve course. Possibly Hajime. I wouldn't be shocked if Hajime's in this, but I also don't know if I'm really expecting many characters from Danganronpa 1 and 2. It would be cool. I'm very curious, honestly, who is and isn't going to be... in this. I think some other interesting things about this cover is, like, there is a kind of digitization effect with the crossboard there on part of the girl. It's almost like she's fading away into nothingness. And there's Monokuma behind her, of course, which implies I am taking Monokuma, the implication of Monokuma just directly as the influence of Junko in the story, because I am expecting this to... I'm honestly expecting Junko to be directly in the story, but if she's not directly in this story, she's certainly going to have a huge influence. Her actions, as well as how that might partake, of course, the Izuru Kamakura's actions and how, you know, Junko plays into that as well, could potentially come up in this. It's all about stuff... It's all about either the tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy, the tragedy, like the real tragedy that would spawn from it, and that timeline is where I'm expecting this to exist in, and obviously with it being called Danganronpa 0, and also the works cited Danganronpa 0 meme in Danganronpa 2, all of that seems pretty obvious, and the fact that we're focusing on a Hope's Peak Academy potatoes would imply that this is going to be our first time, like, focusing on actual Hope's Peak Academy shit, given the first game and the second game were both kind of interesting twists on that, and that neither of them were actually about actual life at Hope's Peak Academy, but a severely altered form of that. Alright, Volume 1, Chapter 1. So we saw there's 33 chapters of this story. Volume 1 is 16 chapters, Volume 2 is 17. So we'll see how far we can get. And sure enough, the first words I see are Junko Enoshima despaired. Nice to see that this series never changes. Junko Enoshima despaired. Anything and everything ended up just the way she wanted. Everything turned out just as she had hoped. And so, she despaired. Is it really that easy? My voice is all fucked up, and the fact that I've never actually had to voice proper Junko, given the fact, really, outside of maybe a few lines, given the fact that obviously proper Junko is revealed at the end of every time she, when we get proper Junko, she's voiced because of the trial and stuff, but magma-like heat boiled up from the pit of her stomach, gradually swelled inside her body, and exploded as it reached her chest. It spread from her heart and flowed through every muscle in her body. The sound of splashing water came from the muddy pool she stood in as droplets danced through the air. Upon closer examination, one could notice the water was red. As soon as her body stopped moving, the red droplets of water came raining down, making grotesque patterns on her clothes and skin. Her clothing dyed red with blood. Her hair dyed red with blood. Her face dyed red with blood. Nevertheless, none of this caught her attention. Instead, she started stomping her foot impatiently. It was a magnificent stomp. She put every bit of strength, body, and soul she had into it, her entire existence. And then, after stomping for a while, Junko Enoshima let out an annoyed yell. As fierce as the roar of a demonic, rampaging beast. It's not enough! Her scream echoed through her surroundings, the noise exploding out as if it were a rock shattering into pieces. But she wasn't done. She continued to scream, "More! More!" I see, my voice is all fucked. Like, even trying to do voices right now is just, like, the idea. And I don't even know exactly where to go with Junko, because that's such a complicated... I need even better despair-inducing despair. She continued stamping her foot intently. Despair-inducing despair. That was what she was after. She wanted not only for the world to taste such despair, but for herself to be taken by despair as well. More, more, more! A more despair-inducing despair! She stopped mid-thought. Something clicked inside her head, and she stopped moving. Her face froze in a surprised expression, and she stood petrified, as if every muscle in her crimson-painted body stopped working. That's some pretty fucking based art, I'm not gonna lie. That's pretty hot. Then, she let out a weak whisper. Oh. I see. A series of gears and switches began moving deep inside her skull, sparking pitch-black thoughts. A series of faces floated up inside her mind. They were faces she knew, of course. The faces of her classmates at Hope's Peak Academy. A tremble shook through her body as her lips curved into a smile. She smashed her foot to the earth once again as she cackled and shook. Her frenzied stomping became like a dance. Joy and excitement radiated through her as she moved, and she found that she just couldn't stop herself. Oh, it's so wonderful! So incredibly wonderful! And as the faces of the people destined to bring her so much wonderful despair kept floating inside her mind, her heart overflowed with a strange feeling that almost felt like love, and she danced to the rhythm of despair. Oh, it's going to be so magnificent! This despair! Laughing ecstatically, the ultimate despair, Junko Enoshima continued dancing. She danced as if she were losing her mind. This was the beginning. The beginning of a story that ends in despair. Alright, so that was chapter 1. That was pretty short. We're apparently 3% through the story, so that's good. At that rate, we might actually get through this, volume 1 in one video. If that keeps up, we'll have to see. Obviously, I'll probably have a lot to say as we go. But obviously we're getting a Junko introduction, which is interesting. That does immediately confirm that Junko's either going to be directly involved or her influence is going to be felt throughout this, which the latter was expected. Honestly, both were expected in my opinion, but at the very least, her influence is going to be felt in the story. That makes a lot of sense given what we know about the tragedy. And I'm excited. It seems like this was the moment where she potentially originally came up with the idea for what would become the tragedy, as well as specifically the death match that she would put her class through. I'm not entirely sure, but either way, that was really cool, and I really like it. So let's jump into Chapter 2. I don't really have much else to say. That was fun. Chapter 2. Hope's Peak Academy, an exclusive government-sanctioned school accepting only students with exceptional abilities. Its stated goal is to raise the future of hope of the nation, and for that reason, it became known as the Academy of Hope. It's a source of envy, as it's common knowledge that one can achieve great success in life just by being a Hope's Peak graduate. As most of its alumni are now employed in high positions in every field of the professional world, that statement is not an exaggeration. There are 2 requirements to becoming a Hope's Peak student. First, one must be currently enrolled in a high school. Second, they must be the very best in their field of expertise. Hope's Peak doesn't hold any standard entrance exams, as the Academy insists that the things tested by these kinds of exams are meaningless for its purposes. Instead, students are scouted for by the Academy's staff, who serve as both educators and researchers of extraordinary human ability. Some say Hope's Peak Academy's faculty members are much like foster parents of talent, who have made it their life's mission to find and nurture talent in their children. And obviously, of course, the ultimate kind of end game of that being the Zuru Kamakura project, as we learned about in DR2. Also, yeah, again, I feel like this goes without saying, and I have my playlist ordered properly, but don't watch my playthrough, my reading of this, unless you've played DR1 and DR2. Or watched my Let's Play, or whatever. But right now, every member of that extraordinary faculty, as well as the Academy itself, was facing an unprecedented, unparalleled crisis. Okay, so this could be either the tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy, where Izuru killed a bunch of kids from the student council, or this could be the kind of rebellions of sorts among the what's it called? The reserve course and all of that shit. It could be, it's probably related to the tragedy of Hope's Peak, but it could also just be the tragedy itself kind of starting to take off. Hope's Peak Academy's faculty building is located in the school's East District, and is the only building on campus the students are forbidden to enter. The corridors of that building, usually bustling with teachers and staff, were now empty and engulfed in an unnatural silence. The laboratories, the private rooms, and the luxurious personal offices had all been abandoned. Every man and woman who usually occupied these locations was currently gathered in a single place. Meeting Room 13. Hope's Peak Academy's largest meeting room is located on the top floor of the faculty building, and has a maximum capacity of over 300. Nevertheless, with every single faculty member attending, it was fully packed. Not a single empty seat remained among the long tables lining the room. For such a huge crowd, however, the room was strangely quiet. Only a single person's voice could be heard. The voice of Hope's Peak Academy's headmaster, Jin Kirigiri. Alright, so we got Daddy here. We got Kyoko's dad, the headmaster. We are not that familiar with him, but we do know what he looks like, and we do know a little bit about how he acted. We do have an English voice for him as well. He faced the assembled faculty members from his position at the foremost table and read from a printout he held in his hand. Without even a glimpse of emotion, he spoke in an unaffected tone of voice. The words printed on the paper came out of his mouth as if he were nothing more than an automaton reading a script. As far as Kirigiri was concerned, that was his most important duty. He was to communicate the decision to all of the faculty members, no matter how little sense it seemed to make. He had no time for doubts or hesitations. If he had the time for that, he would have been attending to a number of other things. "Are you telling us to cover it up?" A voice suddenly echoed through the meeting room. Kirigiri raised his head and saw 300 people staring at him intently, waiting for a response. It wasn't a piercing stare, nor one of judgment. It was far more uncomfortable than that. 300 people stared at him in discomfort, as if they were one entity. And from this, Kirigiri felt every hair on his body stand on end. He turned his head to the 4 people seated to his right, trying to escape the gaze. They were stationed at the same frontmost table that he was, their faces creased with wrinkles. Their eyes were closed, making those wrinkly faces even wrinklier. That just reminds me of ironically, a Danganronpa 2 line from the last chapter. If you know, you know, I guess. Most of you probably do. From Kirigiri's position, it almost looked like the 4 faces before him were one huge, giant wrinkle. The expressions of the 4 members of Hope's Peak Academy's steering committee seemed to say they had already given up. Interesting. The steering community, huh? Committee, sorry. An unintentional, bitter smile appeared on Kirigiri's face. "So that's how it's gonna be. Oh well, it's not as if I expected anything else." With those feelings festering inside his heart, Kirigiri turned back towards the crowd's stare and set the paper aside. From this point onward, he was going to use his own words. So I'm assuming this is right after the tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy, where Izuru killed 13 members of the student council. "Let me make this perfectly clear. We reached this decision after putting a lot of thought into the matter at the steering meeting that took place earlier today." He felt the temperature in the room grow tepid, perhaps from every faculty member's body having grown stiff in attention. Kirigiri sipped from the glass of water in his hand and continued. "We understand, of course, how extremely irregular this decision is." The wrinkled faces that were as much a part of the "we" he had mentioned as himself did not move an inch. It was as if they knew from the very beginning that he was going to take the situation into his own hands. "But make no mistake, we are not covering this tragedy up to escape responsibility. If I could end it all, here and now, simply by taking responsibility, I would do so in a heartbeat. Unfortunately, this particular incident cannot be dealt with that easily. It wouldn't even matter if each and every one of us accepted responsibility. We're dealing with a problem that exists on an entirely different level." Kirigiri stopped for a moment and finished his glass of water in a single gulp, trying to remain calm. "Don't get me wrong. I don't think we are completely blameless here. If we were, that parade out there wouldn't be happening right now." Okay, so this is the rioting, not the rioting, but this is the student rioting and like the reserve chorus and all that shit going on. The various things that are potentially being somewhat stirred up by Junko. Kirigiri gestured toward the curtain window. Several people turned to look at it, a severe expression on their faces. "The parade has been growing larger and larger lately. The people in it hate us, and I don't think they're wrong for doing so." Kirigiri paused and moved his gaze across the room, looking at each of the faculty members' faces as if what he was about to say, as if what he were about to say was personally directed to every one of them individually. "That said, I refuse to believe Hope's Peak Academy's thesis that talent itself is humanity's first and foremost hope is wrong. You must realize that if information about this incident leaves the walls of the school, we are likely to lose it all. As far as I'm concerned, that would be an enormous loss for mankind. Every one of our successful graduates I've spoken to feels the same way." No. Talent itself being humanity's first and foremost hope is a bit of a oversimplification, and it's basing too much of the value of a human being on what they can and can't do. It's very much Nagito speak. And unfortunately, Nagito wasn't the admirer of Hope Speak Academy because Hope Speak Academy and Nagito basically had the same ideology. Like, they are basically, like, Nagito is basically the representation of Hope Speak Academy in an individual. The irony that he was lucky enough to attend is very ironic, but at his core, he is everything that he is truly the embodiment of Hope Speak Academy as an individual. And that is a good way to get across the fact of just how fucking terrifying Hope Speak Academy really is, or was, I suppose, in this particular point in the timeline is. At the mention of the Hope's Peak alumni, the crowd stirred a little. And that is why the members of Hope's Peak Academy's steering committee and myself have come to the conclusion that this incident should not be made public. Kirigiri let his gaze wander to the old men once more, but they remained still. Their expressionless silence made it seem as though none of this concerned them. As I said before, I know more than anyone how irregular this decision is. Nevertheless, we have a duty, both as educators and as researchers, to protect talent. Should human ability such as the kind found in this institution become the target of public hostility, it would be an absolute catastrophe. Furthermore, there is one thing that I want you all to remember. The 300 faculty members waited in attention for Kirigiri's next words. Crimes committed may be terrible, but it doesn't change the fact that this student carries a very special brand of hope that we raised ourselves. Yep, if there was any doubt at this point that we were talking about Izuru, we're talking about Izuru. The look in the faculty's eyes changed in an instant. No one so much as uttered a word. Everyone sat in complete silence. No one objected. No one could object. His words were narrow-minded, but they reflected the opinions of everyone in the room. They were all acting both as educators and as scientists, researching human talent. And just like any other scientist becoming obsessed with their area of research, the staff of Hope Speak Academy were obsessed with talent. Anyone who did not share that obsession did not belong at Hope Speak. And that is why they listened to Kirigiri's words and made their decision. For the idea they believed in, for the future they believed in, for the hope they believed in, they would do their best to conceal the tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy. All right, that was chapter 2. That was spicy. Kirigiri, you got these old men behind him. The way it was described, and I don't know much about them yet, but the way it's described, I'm getting, honestly, like, my mind jumps to Gendo Akari. It's ironic that my mind jumps to Gendo Akari right now when I'm thinking of Jin Kirigiri, and the old men are making me think of Seal. So that's kind of the vibes that I was getting just a little bit. And maybe that comparison's honestly quite fitting, given that Gendo Akari also has a child who is a very important character in that story. And yeah, so obviously most of you probably get that reference, and if you don't, then cool. Anyways, that was interesting though, to kind of hear Jin speak about the tragedy, speak about their mindset, and it gives you a little bit of an insight into not only Kyoko's father and how he operated as headmaster of Hope's Peak, but in general with the entire the entire faculty body and kind of getting an idea of the type of people that would work at Hope's Peak and the type of people that, despite everything, they, it's a bit cultish, but they have a belief that trumps all. They believe in hope. They believe in what they've done in researching hope, and they want to protect this hope. And talent, in their eyes, is hope. They perceive them basically as the same thing, and so they've created this superior talent in the Izuru Kamakura project, and in doing so, even though the entity Izuru Kamakura himself did horrible things, they still are willing to basically put everything on the line to protect him because they believe that he is more valuable than any one of them. And both the idea of Hope's Peak Academy, the academy itself, and Izuru are all more valuable than the morals that they might hold as individuals, because collectively they all believe in this. And they believe in this deep enough, they're obsessed with it, as the story itself said, to the point to where this is more important. And so they've decided to make their decision, which is to agree in concealing the tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy. It's good shit. Anyways, that was chapter 2. Fun times. We're at the pace we're going, I'm starting to think that maybe we're going to get through like 8. We're going to get halfway through. That's kind of my goal now, is if we can get halfway through volume 1 and then finish volume 1 next video, and then split volume 2 into 2 videos as well. That might be a little more realistic. So I'm kind of eyeing 8 chapters as what we might do today in Danganronpa 0. Anyways, chapter 3. A yellow cat peeked out from the thicket beside the pavement. Slowly, it stepped out of the swaying grass and into the road, waving its long tail as it turned its eyes expectantly towards me. But its expression soon turned to alertness and then to fear. The cat, having seen me skipping merrily down the road toward it, must have thought I was about to trample it, and so it escaped back into the bushes in panic. But I didn't care at all. Sun shining down on me, wind fluttering my skirt. Oh, is this going to be our main girl? The redhead? I continued my joyful skip onward and down the road. I was in Hope's Peak Academy's East District near the courtyard, where many newly built facilities, as well as several still under construction, were lined up around me. As I made my way down the path between the buildings, my skips like stitch work between them. I took no special notice of any dirty cats or of the classrooms I passed who were studying and fraternizing all around me. Nor did I derive any happiness from the light touch of the sun after a long while indoors. No, I skipped down the road with nothing but my destination on my mind. Not that I'm the kind of girl who'd go skipping around thoughtlessly. I had a very good reason. I'm going to meet the boy that I like more than anyone in the world. That reason may or may not have been a good one, but either way, no student in their right mind would go skipping down the road of such a prestigious school's campus as Hope's Peak Academy. So it wasn't surprising that other students who happened to walk by looked at me oddly, but that really had nothing to do with me. Nothing in the world could stop my skipping. Not a crying girl, or a lover's quarrel, or a student in a wheelchair that had come to a standstill. Not even an anemic student who had fallen down. Okay, so she is... Okay, giving me almost yandere vibes right now, which would not be surprising given this series. One thought alone moved my body. I want to see the one I love, and I want to see him soon. I skipped down paths and up steps, not caring in the least how much my skirt flapped as I made my way through the courtyard. Damn, not caring if she gives somebody a nice view, I suppose. Continuing down the road, I suddenly came to a stop. Where is it that I'm going? Oh my god, my voice. Where is it that I'm going? I looked around in confusion and realized that I didn't recognize any of the landmarks around me. My heart started thumping loudly. No, everything's fine. I calmed myself down and removed a notebook from the backpack I was carrying. On the last page of the notebook, the following sentence was written. You're looking for the Neuroscience Institute on the 3rd floor of the biology building in Hope's Peak Academy's East District. A cool wind of relief passed through my body. Yeah, that's right, the biology building. But where is the biology building anyway? My heart began thumping heavily once more. Everything's fine, no need to worry. I hurriedly flipped through the notebook as if acting on instinct. My eyes stopped on a page with a crude drawing of a map. Above it, the following was written. This is a diagram of Hope's Peak Academy's East District. Well done, me. Without thinking, I struck a victory pose. So, 2 comments. Actually, 3 comments. Because I just thought of another thing that could be crazy. So, first of all, this girl has some sort of, like, memory disorder. Interesting. Second of all, what the fuck? Another memory loss story! What the hell, Danganronpa? And this is actually getting ridiculous. Such a meme. I love this series. And third of all, speaking of memory loss, is there any possibility that this girl's memory loss is instrumental to how Junko takes people's memories away? Because I don't necessarily think that's ever going to be explained. But it might. So, I guess we'll see. I jumped onto the raised edge of the fountain that decorated the center of the courtyard, comparing the buildings around me with the ones on the map. Literature building, math building, physics building, arts, health, linguistics, faculty. As cold droplets from the fountain kept hitting my thighs, I looked desperately for my destination. The biology building, as if it were my first time visiting. I think that's it? My eyes stopped on a square building with a distinctive light green exterior, whose appearance seemed to line up with what was drawn in the notebook. Alright! I jumped down from the fountain's edge and started running. Some boys in the area looked at me in surprise. Maybe my skirt flew up for a second during my vigorous leap? But that really had nothing to do with me. Interesting, she doesn't seem to care anything about the world around her. Like I said, again, that does kind of, again, go into my theory that potentially this girl's entire life... And now that I know that she has memory issues, I wonder if, like, she's able to remember this guy, and, like, because of that, she's basically built her entire existence and everything that she thinks and cares about around this boy. And, like, the one thing she knows deep down is she loves him, and so because of that, he is quite literally her everything. It's interesting. Anyways, in any case, even if I don't remember the place, I've found my destination. And yeah, anytime I try to even remotely do a voice, especially like a female voice, it just goes really high and really weird and it doesn't sound good. So I apologize for that, but I gotta get this recorded and I was feeling good enough to talk for God knows how long, so I said fuck it, right? My ferocious dash led me inside the biology building, where I soon discovered a flight of stairs at the back of the lobby. I didn't lose momentum for even a second as I ran all the way up to the 3rd floor. When I reached it, I ran down the corridor, checking the plates next to the doors that lined its halls. Finally, at the very end, I found the sign that read, Neuroscience Institute. I hastily stopped in my tracks. After a quick, deep breath, I checked my hair and my smile in my compact mirror. Yep, cute as always. Flashing that same wonderful smile and shouting, "Good morning!" In my brightest voice, I opened the lab's door. And that's when it happened. Something flew just past my ear, slicing the air with a whoosh. Eek! I turned my head in a panic and saw a small blade embedded in the wall behind me, still vibrating from the impact. I jumped back, letting out a yelp. Why is there a knife flying through the air? A chiding voice answered back from inside the lab. I wonder if this is the boy. Don't shout. The moment I heard that voice, my heart started beating faster. As it loudly thumped in my chest, I turned toward the interior of the lab, where a boy was lounging on a bed in the center of the room. Okay, does he just stay there 24/7? You're late. That's unseemly for someone as ugly as you. Damn! Holy shit, we got a savage. Holy fuck. Oh, I'm gonna like this guy. A dirty white shirt was sloppily thrown over his body. He was lying face up, his gaze focused on a thick volume of manga held above his head. He didn't so much as look at me as he spoke. You're also too loud for someone as ugly as you. Come to think of it, acting so scared of a little scalpel is weird too. Wait a second, I interrupted him hurriedly. I can report you for discrimination if you keep calling me ugly, you know. Who are you going to report me to? The National Japanese Association of Ugly People? That kind of group would be guilty of discrimination just by existing. The boy who kept calling me ugly while keeping his face buried in his manga was the person in charge of this lab. The doctor in charge of my treatment. My childhood friend. The boy I like most in the world. So I'm assuming this is the ultimate neurologist, and if I'm remembering correctly, it was the work of the ultimate neurologist, the ultimate programmer, and there was one other person involved whose work was used to make the Neo World program. But I believe the ultimate neurologist wasn't name dropped, but they were talent name dropped. An ultimate neurologist in regards to the Neo World program, if I remember correctly. I think it was the ultimate therapist. I think it was therapist, neurologist, and programmer. Obviously, programmer being Chihiro, and therapist, no idea. But if this is the ultimate neurologist, which would make sense that he's the doctor in charge of the treatment of a girl that has some sort of memory loss issue, that would make sense. And that would also make sense why. So there's almost like a pseudo Stockholm syndrome as well, potentially going on with this girl. So that would also make sense. So there's a lot of fun things here. Oh, we actually get a picture, and yeah, it is the guy reading. That is a thick ass manga. What the fuck? And yeah, there they are. Cool to see both of them there. That's actually really cool art. I really like that. Yep, he's the ultimate neurologist. Yasuke Matsuda, I think. Oh, I see. You're a member of that Wait, no. Oh, I see. You're a member of that association, aren't you? Is that why you're so angry? I'm not, and I'm not even ugly. On second thought, you're right. You aren't ugly. My chest swelled in pride, and I flashed a winning smile. Yep, that's right. I even checked in my mirror just now, and you're super ugly. Super ugly?! My shock was considerable, but it didn't take me long to recover, just enough to come up with a sharp response. Liar! I'm not super ugly. If anything, I'm world-class cute. Matsuda continued to ignore the fuss I was making, his eyes never leaving his manga. I don't care what the world thinks. Ugliness is subjective, and I'm free to make my own judgment, he said, as if the matter at hand didn't concern him at all. Okay, I already want to throw out another thing here. Are these ultimate despairs? Again, Junko relevance, Danganronpa 0. As far as we know, the only ultimate despairs that existed were Junko, Mukuro, and the remnants of despair. That doesn't necessarily mean they're the only despair potatoes. And I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about, again, the usefulness of a neurologist, the obvious ways that someone with memory loss could turn into an ultimate despair is there's a lot of ways you could do that. I'm curious if these two are ultimate despairs. I think that there's a very good chance that we could go down that route. And I'm curious if that's what we're doing. Anyways. So, So tell me where you think I'll ugly. I'll get it fixed with surgery, I cried in desperation. Is it my eyes? My nose? Maybe my mouth? How about my voice? Yeah, your voice sounds like shit because I sound like shit right now. Your heart, mostly. But I can't fix my heart in surgery. Technically, that's not true, but also, that's actually a terrifying response. Where her response to being called ugly is, I'll get it fixed with surgery. That's kind of horrifying. Strangely, it's probably pretty realistic, though, which is the worst part about it. Definitely despair-inducing, though. Is that so? Poor you. Honestly, you're beyond help. Both your face and your brain aren't any good. I think you could have some success if you use your ugliness for sympathy, though. Go stand in front of a train station and beg for change or something. I'm sure you'll make lots of money. Like he's right, but it's literally because she's cute, not because she's ugly. I dropped my shoulders, crestfallen. My hands fell to my sides and my body drooped limply. The verbal beating I'd received was just too harsh. By the way, who are you? That was confusing because it was the guy saying it, so that threw me off. I raised my head in surprise at his unexpected question. I've only heard your voice up to now, so I don't know who you are yet. Are you saying you were talking to me this entire time and you didn't know who I was? It's your fault. You never told me who you were. That's pretty rude. I didn't, but you recognize my face, right? See, it's me! I don't have time to look at you, said Matsuda, still absorbed in his manga. I just got to the good part. Don't have time? It's just manga! Don't tell Natsuki that! And, if you're going to ask what's more important, me or the manga, I'll still be listening to you, but as far as looking goes, I'll take the manga, same as always. Damn, what a savage. I love this dynamic, though. This fucking Matsuda, Yasuke Matsuda guy is crazy. What the fuck? I see. If the answer is the same as always, that means manga was always more important to you than me. That's cruel. I didn't want to know that. That's a fine observation, but please just answer the question. Oh, okay. Pressured, I took the notebook out of my backpack once more and read its front cover. Ryoko Otonashi's memory notebook. As soon as I saw the words, I remembered. I remembered my own name. It seems my name is Ryoko Otonashi? Maybe? I know only one person stupid enough to not be sure of her own name. Matsuda let out a big sigh. Huh. So you weren't someone suspicious after all. Are you trying to say you threw that scalpel earlier because you mistook me for someone suspicious? Is that it? That's right. I'm not the kind of guy who throws sharp objects at acquaintances after all. Liar! I pointed my finger at Matsuda. I mean, before even checking to see who I was, you told me I was late and that I was too loud for an ugly person. That's proof you knew who I was. Thump. Matsuda loudly snapped his manga shut. Leveraging the bed's cushion to bounce onto his feet, he walked briskly toward me until there was almost no distance between us. What? What's wrong? As he stared straight into my eyes, my body flushed with heat. Did you remember that? Oh yeah, that's a good point. It's like, cause yeah, we don't really know the limitations of her, we don't know the exact parameters of her condition yet. Huh? Matsuda gripped my shoulders firmly with both hands, and his face drew close to mine. Do you remember calling me Do you remember me calling you ugly when you got here? He asked in a slow, firm tone. Having Matsuda pressed so close to me, with such a serious expression on his face, made my heartbeat increase tenfold. I think so. I guess my condition's a little better today. Just as I could feel my face turn pink, he released his hold on me and turned to face elsewhere. Then, still looking away, he whispered, as if talking to himself. condition really better, or is it getting worse? The fuck does that mean? The fuck does that mean? That's horrifying. I don't know what that means. I'm gonna keep that line in the back of my head. What the fuck? Huh? What do you mean? It's nothing. Yeah. Misspell there, but that's fine. Matsuda shook his head and began speaking in a commanding tone. Right. Go lay on the bed. We have to begin today's treatment. With my mind still reverberating with the beats of my heart, I removed my backpack and set it aside. Then I lay down on the bed occupied by Matsuda until just a few minutes ago. As I let my body sink into the softness, my nose was filled with the scent of the sheets. Matsuda's scent. It tickled my nostrils as the remains of his warmth engulfed my body, and I felt just as happy as if he were lying next to me, hugging me softly. That is a little creepy. I laughed, an instinctive, giddy laugh. I apologize so much for the attempt of doing female voices. I don't even think my male voices sound good, but they don't sound half as bad as the female one. It's just... Like I said, I'm able to talk, but the voices are just not there yet. So hopefully by the time we do part 2, they're doing better. But it is what it is. You guys are just going to have to deal with it. Is something funny? Matsuda grimaced and gave me a hard look. I realize that's the way dung beetles laugh. Oh, I realize that's the way dung beetles laugh. But even though you are one, it's just too gross. Can't you at least try to laugh normally? Ah, yo! What the fuck? What's normal about that? If anything, that's even more gross. Annoyed, Matsuda rolled a cart noisily from the corner of the room. Sitting atop it were several complicated, important-looking machines. He pulled the cart up to the bedside and with a brief, "Let's begin," started operating one of the machines with a tense expression on his face. I found myself staring at him as he worked. Silky soft hair with long almond eyes peeking through it, long feminine eyelashes, a pointed jaw, thin lips, slender and pale fingers. Okay, girl's just trying to turn us all on. What the fuck? Stop looking at me, super ugly. It's creepy. And a sharp tongue. Oh, that's actually kind of a cute line. That's right, that's my Matsuda. I rolled to my side and began to write something in my notebook. You don't have to write everything down, dung beetle. But if I don't write it down, I'd forget it all. Matsuda let out an exaggerated sigh. Honestly, your brain's like a bottomless pit. Bottomless pit. It wasn't another one of his cruel jokes, it was true. I forget everything I see and hear after a very short time, no matter how awful it may be. I don't know the reason. If I ever knew, I've forgotten it. Whatever the reason may be, my forgetfulness is not normal. Of that I'm certain. But it's not like I'm forgetting things because I want to. There's a sickness in my brain, right? I can't help it, so be nice to me. No, I don't think we can just call it a sickness and be done with it. Matsuda shook his head slightly. The human memory is a very complicated thing, and there's a lot we don't know about it. It's almost like a black box. Your situation isn't just a simple sickness that can be dealt with like any other. He's right. Whew. As he explained, he stuck suction pads all over my head and face, the cords from which were attached to the machines on the trolley. There's a part of the human brain that we call episodic memory. It stores your personal experiences, what you see and hear. The area of the brain responsible for it is called the hippocampus. If something goes wrong there, the brain experiences difficulties in creating and storing new episodes. There's a famous old example about a patient who had the hippocampus removed in surgery and lost all ability to form new memory. Okay, for a second when I was reading that, I was like, you say a famous example, but when we talk about manipulating the brain in Danganronpa, you know where my mind's going to, and it's to a thing I've mentioned several times already in this commentary. So I just had to take a second to think about it, but no, that's not, from based on what we saw, I don't think that's what happened. And it was a little different. Anyways. Since then, there's been a lot of research about the exact role of the hippocampus in relation to memory. That said, even if your hippocampus is malfunctioning, you'd still retain your procedural memory of how to do tasks, like riding a bicycle or using tools. You won't remember the episodes related to those tasks, though. For example, you might remember how to ride a bicycle, but you won't remember how you learned to ride them. That's it, in a nutshell. I see. So that's why, even though I'm super forgetful, I still know how to read and write in my notebook. I held the notebook in question with both of my hands and nodded thoughtfully. Ryoko Otonashi's memory notebook. The notebook was memory itself for me. The one thing I knew I could trust above all else. As long as I had it, I could more or less live a regular life, like regular people. That said, it seems that the school was a little behind in accommodating students like me, and I still faced many difficulties on that front. For example, during exams I couldn't review my notes, which is something that caused my grades to plummet and got me suspended from... What? I've been suspended from the school? I yelled, looking up from the notebook. Just because my grades are bad? That's not fair. You should be glad they haven't kicked you out altogether. I had to negotiate with the school to keep that from happening. Huh? You stood up for me? My heart skipped a beat. I'm so happy. You really are fond of me, aren't you? Matsuda scoffed. I couldn't risk losing precious research. Man, he really is a student that is well on his way to being a professor at this fucking school. Jesus Christ, Matsuda. Even if he obviously, I don't want to say obviously, but most likely cares about Ryoko. Even so, Matsuda took the time to do something so kind for me. Your case seems to involve a failure in the retrieval of long-term memory. It's possible something went wrong with the synapses connecting the neurons somewhere in your brain, but I need more time to investigate the problem more thoroughly before I can really say for sure. Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't understand most of what you said, but at least I haven't been expelled. No, I get it. It makes perfect sense to me. I mean, obviously you kind of have to fudge it a little because this is a generally unexplored territory that's very hard to research, but, you know, based on what we do know, this does make enough sense. If I get expelled now, where would I even go? I don't have anywhere outside of the school. I've forgotten everything else. I don't even remember my family or any old friends I may or may not have, and if I get expelled, I'll also end up away from you, Matsuda. Being separated from Matsuda was the thing I feared most. My body shivered a little just saying the words aloud. It is really interesting. Like, she has built her entire life and identity in this, muddled brain state about Matsuda. So obviously there'd be nothing, like, she would just completely lose it if it wasn't for him. Matsuda turned to face me and spoke bluntly. You're a valuable research subject, and I don't plan to lose you. At least, not at the moment. But you might change your mind later. I'm happy, I suppose, but I have to remember not to be too much of a burden from now on. Don't complain. You should be honored that you're participating in such important research. Matsuda chided me and then continued his explanation. In order to understand why memory loss occurs, we need to understand the core elements of our brain's memory storage apparatus on a molecular level. Once we understand that, it opens the door to a wide array of possibilities, like improving the quality and longevity of human memory or developing medicine to prevent memory loss. In the future, we might even be able to treat memories like we do data on a hard drive, creating devices to back them up or destroy select parts of them freely. Actually, there's already research going on for that abroad. By suppressing the enzyme kinase M-zeta, they were able to erase the long-term memory of lab rats. Interesting. I don't know if that's based on... I don't know if that's a real thing or just something in this universe, but that's actually really interesting. as far as memory is concerned, obviously this is playing into the Neo World program as I assumed once I realized, yeah, this is the fucking neurologist. But yeah, it is interesting because obviously memory is at the core of Danganronpa. It has been a core element of every Danganronpa story we've covered so far, including this one. Like, the first two played on memory loss in a different sense. This one is literally, like, at its core about a girl with memory loss and a guy who studies it. That's literally what the two main characters are. So it's really interesting to read all that and really kind of get into that. I think that's really interesting. And yeah, obviously this goes into, because we know that his research was used in what would eventually become the Neo World program that the Future Foundation would develop. Really cool stuff. I really like that, and the way he kind of refers to it, and kind of referring to it in a more technological approach. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, without saying any more, obviously we avoid spoilers as best as we can here for other series, of course. I feel like that explanation was very Steins Gate-esque. Very cool. I see. In fact, I didn't see it all, but for the time being, I had to be agreeable. In any case, I'm just super happy that I can be of help to my beloved Matsuda. Your brain is empty, and so are the words it produces. You really are an empty girl. Damn. I didn't quite understand if he was serious or just making fun of me. But that's just how Matsuda is. He always insists I should take care of myself, even if I oppose him. He may be cold to me and he may be blunt, but he doesn't treat me with fake sympathy. It's depressing when people do, so I'm grateful for his attitude. I could get that. He treats her like a normal person. He treats her the way he would probably treat anyone else, and she probably doesn't see much of that for the people that know her deal. And that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense as to part of the reason that she likes him. I may be empty, but I'm still super happy. Okay, bimbo. I raised my voice, refusing to be discouraged, but Matsuda's reply was almost a whisper. Well, I can't deny you're helping me out here. One doesn't get his hands on such a rare case very often. Did you say rare? I like the sound of that. It makes me sound so special. I felt as though I was being praised. So what's rare about me? Tell me. Hey, tell me. Yeah, I literally, like, can't even try to do the voice that I want to do for Ryoko, which is very unfortunate. Stop acting like a child. Matsuda spat as he sighed once again. I don't want to tell you, you just get annoyingly excited. What's so wrong with that? Tell me! My insistence finally paid off. You don't often see someone possessing such a remarkable, brain-intensive talent as you do, affected by memory loss. That's why you're such a rare case. Talent? Brain-intensive? Nothing came to mind. It's fine if you don't remember it. It was really irritating when you used that talent of yours. To be honest, I'd prefer if you never tried to use it on me. You got that, dung beetle? I love that he's calling her dung beetle. It's such an asshole thing. Interesting. Oh, that makes this character even more interesting. So she has a brain-intensive talent. And she's affected by memory loss. So she could do, like, she's got some crazy, like, ability to, like, break things down. Whether it's, like, calculations or whether she's able to process things, or it's some bullshit like that, because it's like a huge part of her memory was like excised to make her better at this, and like not on purpose, but that's just the way that her brain like works, I'm assuming. So what she loses in memory it's because so much of her brain power is dedicated to being able to do whatever this talent is. So if I had to guess, it's something that involves like a really high degree of brain power. So like something like, again, either calculating or, you know, breaking stuff down really fast or something like that she can do at a peak human or beyond human rate. Anyways, that is an interesting, that's interesting though, for sure. I didn't quite get what he meant, but his dung beetle comment stung my heart a little bit, so I just decided to nod in agreement. At least I could understand that he was insulting me. I think I'm going to take my headphones off. There's no noise for me, so there's no reason there's no reason to have them on, to be completely honest. Like, might as well just keep going. Anyways, well, I don't really care as long as I get to spend these intimate moments with you, Matsuda. I should be thankful that there's sickness in my brain. Damn, that's a dark line. I told you, it's not really a sickness. Matsuda stuck even more suction cups to my head, as if he were trying to hide my grinning face. Nevertheless, it's admirable that you take this so easily. Your condition is no laughing matter. Shouldn't you be at least a little worried? Huh? What is there to be worried about? Well, you know, said Matsuda in amazement. You don't seem to be concerned at all about whether these symptoms are ever going to go away, or whether you'll always be like this. Yeah? His words surprised me. It wasn't like Matsuda at all, asking a question like that in such a serious voice. I'm not worried at all, I laughed, trying to lighten the mood. I mean, the only me I can remember is the me that's lying here on this bed at this exact moment. I can't remember anything from before I lost my memory, so it's not like I have anything to compare it to. That's why I don't see my forgetfulness as a disadvantage. It's just a part of who I am. You don't see it as a disadvantage. But aren't you even worried about how this memory loss started or when it's going to end? Not at all. In fact, I'm much more worried that if I suddenly get cured, I wouldn't get to see you anymore, Matsuda. The room suddenly grew silent. After it continued for a while, Matsuda broke it with a quiet sigh. You should worry, he muttered, his voice suddenly dark. What if you'll always be like this? He looked up. The face peeking through his pitch-black hair was stiff, lost in thought. Matsuda? As soon as I called him, he straightened up and turned back to me. No, it's nothing. He shook his head, as if trying to smooth things over in his mind. Then he returned to the machine, waving his hand as though it were nothing worth fussing over. It's true that nothing good can come out of you being too pessimistic over your symptoms. That's one case where your natural cheerfulness is actually helpful. There's a little bit of a compliment. Yep, my thinking's very flexible after all. Your head is flexible, that's for sure. You can't even remember your friends or family before you lost your memory, and yet you aren't even slightly disconcerted. It's all she knows, and that's kind of an interesting thing about the memory loss. Like I said, I don't mind forgetting those things as long as I'm with you. It's just like I never had them at all. Since I've forgotten about anyone else, they really have nothing to do with me anymore. That's so fucking dark, but it makes sense. Those words again. Matsuda closed his eyes for what felt like an awfully long time. If you keep saying things that have nothing to do with you, you're gonna end up with nothing left inside. Oh, I'll be fine. I'll always have you, Matsuda, I answered cheerfully. You're the only person I can remember, so as long as you're here, I'll never be alone. Interesting. That's actually really interesting. That's so disturbing, and that makes me wonder if something's gonna happen to Matsuda, and that's gonna, like, unlock Ryoko or some shit. You probably link me with the process of coming here to receive this treatment in your procedural memory. That's why you can remember me. No, that's not it at all. Yeah, I know, said Matsuda, trying to calm me down before I became too flustered. He continued attaching suction cups to my face, stopping from time to time to scratch his chest, which I could catch a glimpse of through a gap in his dirty white shirt. Did he really know what I meant? He probably just said that to shut me up. I don't think he even believed me when I said I remembered him. But it's true. I don't remember him in the usual sense of the word. Remember, that is. But I didn't lie when I said I do. I remember Matsuda. I forget him. And yet I remember. I'm not talking about our conversations or what we did together. For those kind of memories, I have to rely on my notebook. No, what I remember is something... She remembers how he makes her feel, like the emotional connection, I assume. No, what I remember is something much more special and important. Yeah. It's not memories, but feelings. Not using my head, but using my heart. What I remember about Matsuda is pure emotion. Every time I see him, I feel the beat of my heart before my head even realizes what's going on. That beat tells me one very important thing. For me, his very existence is precious, one of a kind, irreplaceable. That's why, no matter how forgetful I become, I will never forget him. There's a connection deeper than memories between the two of us. For me, Matsuda is special. He's extraordinary. He's a miracle, and... Shut up already, will you? What? Came back to my senses confused. You heard me? I almost leapt out of the bed, but Matsuda pinned my head back down. If you move too much, you're going to disconnect the cords. What a waste of human life, he said cruelly, as if I'd been trying to disconnect his cords on purpose. But I never said a word. Were you talking about how loud my heartbeat is? I can't help that. If it stopped beating, I'd die. I wasn't talking about you. I was referring to the noise outside. Huh? Outside? Oh, the protesting. Matsuda turned up his chin, pointed to the window. As I listened intently, I could hear an unusual array of noises coming from outside. Jeers, roars, howling voices, repulsed, accusatory voices, reactionary voices full of anger. All of them combined to make a sound almost as though the earth was tremoring. It was an assembly of harsh, hate-filled voices. What is that? It's the parade. They're getting louder and they're getting louder every day now. A parade? You don't mean that parade, do you? Liar, you don't remember it at all. Matsuda flicked my forehead and continued explaining with a grim expression. It's essentially a demonstration, but the teaching staff, or maybe I should say the old geezers in the steering community, didn't like the sound of that, so they decided to give it a ridiculous name like a parade. But isn't a parade the exact opposite of a demonstration? That's exactly why they chose it. But why a demonstration at all? It's the students from the reserve court. Yep. That all makes sense. That all lines up with Danganronpa canon as we know it. Reserve course? I've never heard of it before. Or have I? You don't remember, of course. Well, your head is enormous, so I guess it can't be helped. Wait, calling a girl enormous is sexual harassment. If this were the Edo area, you would be beheaded by Oof! What the fuck? Edo period would make more sense than saying Edo area in the translation if the person who translated this ever reads this. Hope's Peak Academy isn't a traditional learning facility like other schools. They provide education for the talented, but at the same time they research that talent. The teaching staff aren't just simple educators. They're also scientists who research human talent. But scientists are a nasty breed. The more they research, the deeper they want to dig. Therefore, there's something they never have enough of. Do you know what that is? It's probably funding. That is true. Scientists never have enough money because most research is very expensive, and there's really no way around that. Oh, right. My chance to find the answer on my own was gone, so that's all I could say. Up until recently, Hope's Peak Academy was a smaller scale facility that could survive on a government subsidiary and donations from alumni. But the steering committee wasn't satisfied with the state of research, which was slowed by a lack of resources. So they implemented the reserve corps system in order to bring in more money. Okay, that's a more detailed explanation than we ever got about the reserve corps. So, but that's the thing. The steering committee had never come up before, and that's obviously a thing that they're bringing up a lot in Danganronpa 0. So, very interesting. I definitely am into this. That's cool. Obviously, we know that the reserve course was all about just bringing more money into the school, but in the end, yeah, it's basically just a regular school. But yeah, it was really cool. And we know that it's all about the name and the reputation of Hope's Peak, which is why, people will, rich parents will send their kids there. And we know the whole deal. We've been over this in Danganronpa 2, so we don't need to talk about it more than they're going to say, more than whatever else Matsuda is going to explain to Ryoko here. I nodded, humming an agreement to show Matsuda that I was listening. The gist of it is that us Ultimates are affiliated with the main school, but now there's a separate educational facility as well called the Reserve Course. That part of the school is located on the west district of the campus, while the main school remains here in the east district, so we don't actually intermingle much. Heard there's not much that's the same over there. They don't scout their students, instead relying on a standard entrance exam to choose among applicants. Their teaching staff is chosen the same way. Our teachers are the scientists and researchers who work and live at the school, while they have regular teachers coming from outside. So then, it's just a regular high school, isn't it? Exactly. Nevertheless, there was a flood of applications. Brand name is a powerful thing. Exactly. Matsuda almost spat the words out. People didn't care that it was just a reserve course. The prestigious Hope's Peak Academy had finally opened its doors to the public. People are sheep. They're drawn to a name, and the school took advantage of that to get more money from people who would pay an arm and a leg just to get in. Thanks to that, the school went through a rapid growth spurt. We suddenly have research buildings that would make any university jealous. No one was prepared for that. In just a year or two, Hope's Peak Academy became a school of an entirely different scale. The power of the steering committee also grew accordingly. Interesting. So it was always super famous and prestigious, but the reserve course really turned it into a powerhouse from a financial and research level that it just wasn't prior to the existence of the reserve course. Very interesting stuff. Isn't that kind of a ripoff? It seems that way, but that's just the kind of world we live in. Matsuda's mouth twisted into a bitter smile. Right now, Hope's Peak Academy is set up like an old-fashioned caste system. The multitude of students in the reserve course exist only to support the few ultimates in the main one. Apparently, they have some kind of system in place for exceptional students from the reserve course to transfer to the main school. But I've never heard of anyone actually succeeding. Their teachers probably don't think any of them deserve it. Huh? That's not how educators should behave. You're right, but it's exactly how scientists do, and they're really scientists more than teachers in this school. Which, yeah, it's rough, but that is how they go about it here, so it makes sense. Yep. They don't care about anything but their research subject. I'm just the same, in fact. It's just that their subject is human talent. But it's so unfair. I puffed my cheeks in annoyance. Of course it is. If it wasn't, there wouldn't be any need for a demonstration, would there? But still. Matsuda suddenly cut himself off and his tone of voice changed to a cautious one. I don't think they could have set all this up on their own. This has to be the result of someone else's scheme. That's how it seems to me. Oh yeah! Abso-fucking-lutely. Eh? Matsuda narrowed his eyes and looked outside the window. His look was so grim that I hesitated to speak. Hey, ugly. After a short while, he turned back to me as if remembering something. Write this conversation down properly in your notebook. Don't brush it off as having nothing to do with you. Those reserve course students don't think much of us. I don't think they're going to attack you or anything, but it's better to be cautious. Okay, I understand. As I replied, I noticed the suction cups stuck to my head and my face were making it difficult to move my mouth. Need you to stay still for a while. You can sleep if you want. Matsuda stood and stepped away from my line of sight. But I'm not sleepy at all, I replied in an insecure voice. From the other side of the room, I heard Matsuda's voice answer me. I give you sleeping pills? A dozen should probably be enough. What the fuck? What? Isn't that a lethal dose? Are you sure it's alright? I'm surprised she knows that. Interesting. As my unease grew even deeper, Matsuda appeared in front of me again. He was now wearing a school jacket on top of his dirty shirt. If something happens to my machines while I'm gone, you're dead. Are you going somewhere? I have a little business to take care of. Anyways, if something happens to my machines, you're dead. He was serious enough to repeat the warning twice. Actually, wanna. I wouldn't mind being killed if it's you who kills me. It would be troublesome for me. I hate gore. What the fuck? Oh my god, this girl's creepy, man. Like, I get it, but also, what the fuck? Don't be saying shit like, I wouldn't mind being killed if it's you who kills me. That shit's fucked up. What the hell? I didn't think that was such a good quality for someone who studies the human brain, but I kept that to myself. In that case, if I stay here and wait like a good girl, let's watch a movie together later. So you're a good girl now, huh, Ryoko? We can work with that. Oh, what the fuck? A movie? Yeah, you know, like that one. I flipped through the pages of my notebook searching for memories about movies. Here's one. It's about two robbers, Harry and Mar. What? Actual copyright? What the fuck? Sneaking into the McAllister household. Are you talking about Home Alone? It seems you've forgotten, but you bugged me to see it with you before, and we did. Really? In that case, I continued flipping through the notebook, but couldn't find mention of any other movies. Seems I was particularly interested in that one. It's his fault for letting me watch it. Well, I'm sure it's a masterpiece, so it'd still be interesting even if you watch it again. It's certainly not a bad movie, but it's not the kind of movie I'd want to watch again and again. So, what kind of movie do you... Please don't ask me questions fit for the diary of a middle school girl. I felt his distasteful stare looming over me, but I refused to give up. Come on, let's do it. I got a feeling that it'll be just as interesting to watch once more. I read a little more in my notebook. According to this, I thought that the little boy who played the main character, Macaulay Culkin, is super cute. There's a cute boy in this movie. Isn't that exciting? Oh yeah, Macaulay Culkin. Yeah. And why exactly do you think that would excite me? Also, it's Macaulay Culkin. McCall is a lingerie brand. It says here, I thought he was so cute, I wanted to adopt him. You only say that because you don't know how he looks today. He underwent quite the transformation. Wow. A transformation, huh? Matsuda narrowed his almond eyes even more than usual and swept his bangs away from his forehead. Just be a good girl and go to sleep. It seemed he was tired of me trying to postpone his departure. Wait, don't go! Suddenly panicking, I tried to stop him again. I don't want you to go. I'll be lonely. Don't leave me here alone. We haven't seen each other in a long time, have we? A long time? Matsuda stopped in his tracks. why do you think we haven't seen each other in a long time? I'm asking why you think we haven't seen each other in a long time. Matsuda faced away from me as he spoke. His voice was tinted with pain and made me feel anxious. Interesting. Well, because I can feel my heart pounding. So, if you were to see me every day, your heart wouldn't beat as fast? No, that's not it. We saw each other just yesterday, you know. We did? Just as I thought, your memory isn't getting better. Matsuda's back slumped forward as if he were dejected. I guess you were just lying when you said I'm the only one you can remember. Wait, I'll remember in a second. In haste, I flipped through the pages of my notebook. I went through them all from front to back, but I couldn't find any mention of me and Matsuda meeting the day before. It was a complete failure. Interesting, because I would imagine that she would write about every experience that she has with Matsuda. That's really suspicious. That's really... Now the theories are starting to percolate. That makes me wonder. Is it possible? Is it possible we're looking at a split personality thing? Now that would be interesting that we'd have another character in this series that has this, that has a version of this, given the fact that Toko exists, so this wouldn't even be the first character in the series with a split personality. And that almost makes me wonder if there's a chance this character has a split personality. Is there, now I almost want to say, is there some way that this character could be someone we've met before? But I'm thinking to her design, it's like, no one really has red hair. She had pretty nice boobies. Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like it would be a real stretch to, like, I'm thinking of the characters where it's like, maybe that's possible, and all of them seem like a stretch, so I don't, that seems like too much of a stretch, but I'm thinking about the split personality thing. That's a thought. That's a thought, because this doesn't make sense. This feels really weird. We'll see, though. Anyways, when I looked up from the notebook, Matsuda was already gone. I've been had, and there was nothing more I could do about it. I guess there really is nothing I can do now but sleep. Not that that's such a bad thing. At the very least, when I'm asleep, I can lose myself inside my dreams. I can escape this lonely world that doesn't have Matsuda in it. I'll probably even meet Matsuda in my dreams. With that thought deep in my heart, I rolled onto my side, careful not to disturb the cords all over my head, and sniffed the pillow that still had traces of Matsuda's scent. I nuzzled into it as though I were a puppy, humming happily. Then I closed my eyes. As my vision blacked out, my other senses sharpened. Before long, the only thing remaining in my world was Matsuda's scent. No, that wasn't. Oh, excuse me. That wasn't the only thing. I could also hear voices, interfering with my and Matsuda's private world, an assembly of emotional, unsettling voices filled with hate. Anxiety washed over my entire body just by listening to them, so I blocked my ears in panic. It had nothing to do with me after all. Even so, I couldn't sleep. I felt like my body forgot how to. I want to fall asleep. I want to sleep and go to a world where Matsuda is. I want to see him again. Matsuda. Matsuda, 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 Matsuda. And then, as I dreamed about dreaming about Matsuda, I slowly fell into a blissful sleep. Holy shit! Okay, these chapters can actually be pretty long. Jesus Christ. Okay, yeah, this is definitely not going to be a 2-part. Okay, now I'm scared of how long this is going to take me to get through, because I'm definitely not doing this in 2 videos. But I'm thinking about, like, can I even, I don't think I could do 5 more chapters here. So maybe the sets will vary, and I'll kind of escalate as I get back into this whole Danganronpa situation. But yeah, that was the first 3 chapters of Danganronpa 0. Weirdly enough, I'm actually kind of feeling cutting it here. I know this would be a short video. I know that'd be kind of disappointing, but I know that there's 33 chapters, so obviously I don't want to do that. I don't want 10 fucking videos on this, but there's 16 chapters in volume 1. So maybe, man, 8 videos feels like a lot for this. I don't really want this to be 8 videos, but if I could, let me think about this. So there's 13 chapters left, so maybe we'll do like 6 potentially next time, and then 7. I think that might be doable. But also, my voice isn't the greatest right now. My throat is still kind of recovering from weird shit. Nothing, like, I was able to talk. It wasn't anything like that, but it was very, like, it's hard to explain what my issues were with that, but it's still not there, so I'm still struggling a little bit. So obviously, too, as I'm able to talk better, my voices will sound a little better, and I will continue to give you guys hopefully slightly better performances. You guys know my voice, my quote-unquote voice acting in these Let's Plays is suboptimal, but I have fun with it. You guys enjoy me doing them, so I still do them because you guys have fun with it, and this is really interesting. I'm interested. We've met Ryoko, our main girl, and seemingly our main character. I'm wondering if she's going to be the perspective character for the entire story, or possibly the main perspective character for the first volume, and it's going to be Matsuda in the second, or are we going to switch back and forth? I mean, obviously, we'll find out when we jump into Chapter 4, because the first 2 chapters were through the perspective. I mean, the first chapter was Junko, the second chapter was Jin, and now the third chapter was Ryoko. So actually, every chapter has had a different character perspective. But given the fact that Matsuda and Ryoko are the cover characters, and specifically Ryoko is the cover character of Volume 1 of Danganronpa 0, I'm kind of under the assumption that Ryoko and Matsuda are going to be the primary voices, so to speak, the primary first-person POVs for this story, so I'm expecting them to be at the forefront of this. So, yeah, this was, like I said, this was probably kind of short. I don't know, this is probably like an hour and a half, give or take. Not that long. Maybe it was longer. I really have no idea. We'll find out in a little while, but again, getting back into the rhythm of doing Danganronpa is a great feeling. I'm really excited to dive more into this story. It's really interesting so far. I like it. Like I said, I like the characters. I really like Matsuda, but also Ryoko's really cute. Love her design. She's really hot. But she's got a really cute personality too, and I think the fact that this is about a girl with memory loss is, 1, incredibly interesting, and 2, incredibly suspicious, and my, like, crackpot theory brain is all over the place right now, and I just feel like as we go deeper into this story, I'm gonna have interesting theories. I'm already theorizing the possibility that she's somehow a character that we've met in Danganronpa 1 or 2. Now, obviously no one has red hair, but the red hair could be dyed, but also the color that we see their hair as could be dyed. And specifically, I think Remnant of Despair, in this kind of world, I think, is there any possibility, and I kind of just go like, is there any possibility? And I'm thinking, and we've seen her chest, like, we've seen her design. The fact that she has a pretty sizable chest, like, rules out a character like Ibuki, for example, right? But it doesn't rule out a Sonya or a Mikon, potentially. Again, I feel like these are all huge stretches, but I am so suspicious by the fact that she seems to have gaps in her notebook. Gaps in her memory, that's her whole thing, but gaps in her notebook doesn't... That means something weird's going on here below the surface. Like, there's more to her than meets the eye. And Danganronpa, in literally every game that I've played, Danganronpa has used the concept of memory loss to manipulate the story in really cute and unique ways and set up plot twists you wouldn't necessarily expect. I think they did that exceptionally well in Danganronpa 2, but also in the first game as well. I guarantee you they're doing it right now. Our perspective on Ryoko is warped in some way, and we will not find out until probably either the end of Volume 1 or the end of the whole story, depending on how important she is. That's the thing. If this is a new character, then maybe I'm jumping the gun a little here, but I feel like the reveal would... I feel like Ryoko would be way more impactful of a character if it's a character we've met before. And I don't necessarily know if that's going to be the case. And realistically, I feel like the only characters that we've met that I could maybe see her being would be one of the remnants of despair. But how would that necessarily work? Like I said, off the top of my head, my best guess would be Mikan. I think there's a world where that could maybe make sense, but the problem here again also lies in what is her special ability, what is her power, and can I relate her power, her ultimate, to anyone that we've met that had a quote-unquote different ultimate? But that would still would not be contradictory, because if we're talking about different personalities, it's literally just like Jill and Toko, where, you know, Genocide Jack is the ultimate murderous fiend, and Toko Fukawa is the ultimate writing prodigy. So it would be the same gimmick as Toko. So it's not even out of the question that we could have someone with a split personality that we never found out had a split personality because we only ever met one of their personalities in either Danganronpa 1 or 2. But I would imagine this most likely, if this is a character we've even met, it's a Danganronpa 2 character. And that's if we've met them. And obviously there's a very good chance that this could also set up a character that we haven't met yet, but could come up in other material that we haven't gotten to yet. Like another episode, or I think more likely the Danganronpa 3 anime. I think that's a big, in my mind, that's like a big question mark of like, what the fuck is the Danganronpa 3 anime gonna be about? Because I know that that's a really weird thing where you like, I know, the one thing I know about it is how you watch it. And how you watch it immediately makes it sound fucking weird as shit, and I'm really hyped for that, but we still have a ways to go before we get to the anime reactions. But yeah, really interesting stuff. I'm really curious to learn more about Ryoko. I'm curious if my initial gut instincts have some validity to them, or if I'm just speaking out of my ass, because it's most likely the latter, but there's definitely a lot of ways they could go with this. And I like that the Matsuda guy, I really like his personality. His design's pretty cool as well, and I like the reference to him in Danganronpa 2, because obviously this was written pre-Danganronpa 2, so obviously the reference to the ultimate neurologist being Matsuda is really cool. So, really cool. I like our protagonist. I thought it was cool that we got some Headmaster Kirigiri action, and also some Junko action. I liked what we got. The first 2 chapters were kind of like Prologue 1 and Prologue 2, and then Chapter 3 was kind of our first proper full chapter. And given the fact that Chapter 3 was way longer than the first 2, I'm imagining that the rest of the chapters are going to be of a similar length to Chapter 3, which means they're going to take quite a while. So we'll see how far I get through. Like I said, I have no idea. I was planning to definitely do more than I did, but then I kind of realized, like, holy shit, this chapter was long comparatively. So when I read the first one, I was like, oh, that was short. Second one, I was like, oh, and then I realized the percentage isn't necessarily a word-based percentage, because we're apparently 10% through the story, which makes sense because we got through 3 chapters. So, and there's 33 in total, because there's, again, 16 in Volume 1 and 17 in Volume 2. But we'll see what happens. We'll see how much we get through next time. But I hope you guys are excited for my reading of the Danganronpa Zero light novel. I'm really excited to explore this more, to learn more about the world from the time that Hope's Peak Academy was still operating, obviously, in the aftermath of the tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy, when the Reserve Corps students were rebelling of sorts. Protesting would be the best, I think, way to put it. And obviously, we know how this goes. We know how bad this turns out for pretty much everyone involved. So I am curious to see where Matsuda and Ryoko's story goes, and we will obviously find out in the coming videos. So the plan is to do Danganronpa every Friday, starting with 0, moving on to the If story in Danganronpa 2, and then moving on to Ultra Despair Girls, and then the Danganronpa 3 anime. Those first 3 stages through UDG are all going to be like Danganronpa Fridays. I'm not entirely sure with the Danganronpa 3 anime. There's a chance I might put that in the rotation somewhere, depending on where we are at that point, and if there is an opening. If not, it'll probably just be on Fridays. But I'm not entirely sure what I'll do with the anime. But obviously, I'm gonna react to the anime, so yeah, no worries there. I guess I still haven't actually fully decided on what language to do it in. I've been leaning towards the Japanese, since most of the voice actors aren't the same, I know, in the anime compared to the games. If they were the same, I would definitely go with the English, because that's what we've run with in the games. But given the fact that the voice actors are mostly not the same, I feel like we're probably better off doing the Japanese. But if you guys have an opinion on that, I might even do a poll at some point on to whether I should do Danganronpa 3 in English or Japanese, because that I really have no idea for. Usually I know going in very strongly which way I'm going to go. I've kind of decided that, but in this is a special case where I really have no clue. Because again, if all the voices were the same, I would just English, obviously. But because they're not, I think it might actually be less weird to just hear the Japanese voices, and then we get to kind of experience the Japanese voices in part of the stuff, depending on who knows who's in the game and who's. I don't even know who's going to be in Danganronpa 3, who's not, when it takes place. Like, there's so many question marks, but I know that there's returning. There's at least some returning characters, because I know that there's characters whose voices change in the English version. Anyways, that was fun. Really enjoyed that. Really excited for more Danganronpa 0. It is hot as hell in here, and it's 7 a.m., so I'm probably going to edit some videos, including this one and the reactions I recorded earlier, and maybe get some sleep, or maybe just say fuck it and go get some food. I don't know. Whatever the case may be, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys are excited for Danganronpa's return. Obviously, this is a little bit different than what we're used to here. This isn't obviously Danganronpa gameplay, and it's probably not going to be for a little while, because like I said, we are going through this story. I don't know how long the If story is, but both of these stories will probably take a little while, especially given the fact that if this was any indication, probably take longer than I'd want them to, but it is what it is. Nevertheless, I'm excited. So let's check out. Let's leave it off there. Danganronpa is back, and it's a lot of reading. But to be fair, in the end, Danganronpa is kind of always reading. This is just like a step beyond, I guess you could say. But whatever the case may be, if you guys want to support the channel, my Patreon's down below in the description, as is my Discord server if you want to hang out there. And if you want to get in touch with me, DMing me on Discord is probably your best bet. Anyways, without any further ado, it is time for me to bid you adieu. The Flamin' Shark signing out. Hope you guys have a wonderful, fantastical day, and I'll see you next time with another video. Thanks for watching. Peace.